So we can learn details throughout the session from Dr. Soni. He is assistant professor in Government Science College, Madhya Pradesh. He completed his PhD from CSIR National Chemical Laboratory. We know the organization is reputed in the India. He has several publications in reputed journal during the research works. Additionally, he worked as a application scientist in Mitra Biotech and Imperial Life Science. So he has lot of expertise in handling the many sophisticated instruments. So especially I have requested him to just explore the view of the new technology that is a flow cytometry. So mainly he will try to explore the flow cytometric basic analysis during this session. So now I request Dr. Soni to initiate the session. House is yours, please. Sir, continue.
Thank you, Diwakar, for a nice word, and I'll also like to thank the organizing committee, Dr. Sarkar, and you for inviting me for this session. So without delay the time, I'll just start sharing my presentation. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. As I was asked and Diwakar has explained, I'm going to talk about flow cytometry. Flow cytometry has become a very specific technology nowadays because this is the only technology which currently gives us the real quantitative analysis of a protein in a particular cell. And it has crossed lots of boundaries, and lots of development has been taken place in this technology. But as I was told, I should start from the basics and then I will take the analysis. So just a minute, let me switch off my camera so that there will be no bandwidth problem. So I had divided in my presentation in three sections: the basics of flow cytometry, the dissection of flow cytometry, and the analysis of data. So what we understand by the word flow cytometry? Actually, whatever we want to know about the flow cytometry, that's in its name. So we dissect this name. So we have a first name is flow, which said us that there is a cell which is flowing. So something is flowing means something is in motion, and that is cell we want to be in flow. So cyto is cell. So cell is flowing means cell is in a motion. And what we do with this flowing cell, we do metry. Metry means measurement. So we do whatever the measurement we want to do with that particular cell when it is in a motion. So three things here: that we must have a cell, and that cell must be in moving position, and that measurement which we want to do when it is moving. So you can see that cell is moving through a capillary, and whatever we want to study with this cell, we will do this in when it is moving. So flow cytometry is measuring properties of a cell while in a fluid system. So we measure the properties. So flow cytometry is actually a standard laser-based technology that is used in the detection and measurement of physical and chemical characteristics of cell or particles in a heterogeneous fluid mixture. So we will take a heterogeneous fluid mixture where we have the cell or the particle, and then we detect or measure its physical or chemical characteristics. So let's see how we do. So remember, the cell is not stationary, cell is moving, it is flowing, and then we will measure. So what we measure, how we measure, and how we do the measurement while it is flowing, we will try to learn. So take a cell or a ball. Suppose this is our cell, or we will consider it a ball. And if I take a light and throw a light on this cell, and I will put a board which I call detector, what will happen? We will see the shadow of the ball. So if I here, if I move my light from, if I move my light position or my cell position any side, this shadow is either going to increase or going to decrease, correct? But if I fix my position of this light and the ball, then if I keep on changing the ball, my shadow will increase and decrease on the basis of the size of my ball. So this is the first basic of flow cytometry, that we have cell, we throw a light and we saw the shadow. And what we do with this shadow? With this shadow, we try to determine the size of the ball. So in flow cytometry, this is called forward scatter or FSC. Now we take another example. If we don't have a solid ball, if we have a hollow circle and some particle inside that circle, and if we do the same experiment, we put a light, then what will happen? The light will go. We will put a detector and we see a hollow circle, the shadow of a hollow circle. But what happens if the light strikes to this particle? It will deflect. There will be refraction at the some angle, and if we put another detector there at a 45-degree angle, then we can collect the light intensity. We will know how much light is coming, and the number of particle will determine that how much light will be different. So we will know that if I am collecting more light here, that means there will be more particle here. As many particle I have here, I will have as much light here. So this will tell me that how much particle are present in this. Another thing, if I have something on here, cell surface, some particle, some structure, and if light strikes there, that will also give us the diffraction. It will also create some shadow, but it will give me diffraction also. So I will able to know how much is the particle size in this. So this concept in flow cytometry is called the side scatter, or we can also call it SSC. So we learn two things, that if we have a ball, if we put a light, then we can know the size of the cell with its size of shadow, and with the diffraction light we could come to know that how much granules in there. So how is this useful in cell biology? So imagine a cell. This is just a simple caricature. It has a nucleus, it has lots of cellular organelles and cell granules. And now if I put light, so this forward light will give me FSC, forward scatter, and what it will tell us? It will tell me the size of the cell. And as I put these lights, when comes these light rays will strike and reflected with the, when they strike to the organelle, they will tell me the SSC, and it will tell me how much granularity or how much internal complexity is present in that cell. So this is the basic concept of developing flow cytometry. First, that how can we determine the cell two aspect or two parameter of a particular cell: the cell size, cell granularity. So what is the use of this if we can detect only the SSC, FSC, the size cell size or cell granularity? How it is useful to me? Why there is so much noise about flow cytometry? So I told you in first that flow and cyto, the cell has to be in motion. So what cell in our body is flowing, not adhering, not attaching anywhere, but free flow? So that is our blood cells, and mainly the WBCs. So what all WBCs we have? We have lymphocytes, B lymphocyte, T lymphocyte. They are in a smaller size. They are the smallest in WBC, but and granules are also very less. So they have less complexity, size is small. Then comes the monocytes. Their size is little higher than the lymphocyte, and granules are also little higher than the lymphocyte, but still less granules. Then comes the trio, the eosinophils, basophils, and neutrophils. All these are also called cumulatively granulocytes. They are bigger, slightly bigger than monocyte, but quite bigger than the lymphocyte, and they have the highest number of granules. So if I combine these two idea of FSC and SSC, can I distinguish my blood cell? Because remember, how we distinguish blood cell when you go for a CBC test, where the pathology lab person will tell you this much lymphocyte you have, this much monocyte you have, this much eosinophil, this much basophil, this much neutrophil. They earlier used to do this by manual counting on the slide. So there is a subjective way. There is a personal biasness. We don't know that whether the person has counted basophil as a neutrophil or neutrophil as a basophil. There could be interchangeable. So the error chances are quite high. So what they did, if I make a plot, what plot I want to make? Between SSC on y-axis and FSC on x-axis. So I told you lymphocytes have the least size and least granularity. So if I run them and calculate their FSC, SSC, so they will come around somewhere here, because see that SSC is also less, FSC in mitten, because they are not too small, but they are still small. Where would the monocyte go? Monocyte little higher, because they have little higher size. So FSC is also little bit increased. SSC is also has been increased little bit. What about the granulocyte? Granulocytes have highest SSC because they have the highest number of granules, and FSC is almost equal to monocyte, so they will form as come here. So if I will see a real life graph, so if you run a blood for which you lyse the RBC is being lysed, because RBCs are very small, they will go very near here. So usually people lyse the RBCs because there is nothing, RBC, don't need a distinguishing there. But everything has to be, all immunological aspect you study in a WBC. So if you lyse the RBC and run the cells in flow cytometer, you will get this kind of plot. So now can anybody tell me which is which? So this is our cluster 1, this is cluster 2, and this is cluster 3. So any student can tell me which one is lymphocyte, which one is monocyte, and which one is neutrophil? Water, have we got anything in chat box?
Now, presently there is no question. There is some student has the hearing problem. So,
Okay.
Okay.
Am I not audible properly?
Yeah. No. You are audible, but there is some network issue. Amit sir.
Okay.
Hold for a minute.
Okay.
Sir,
So
HOD sir, HOD sir.
Yes, Devakar.
Yeah, sir. The Harshit lecture is audible.
Yes, yes. Also, I think that chat you are referring to is that was about
Okay.
Ranajit thing.
Okay. Okay.
Everything is audible and clear.
Okay.
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 So yes,
So is there has any student responded? So I
No,
told you this is the
sir,
smallest.
may I
This.
answer?
Yeah. Sure. Go ahead. I just click one.
Yes, sir. Sir, the first one is the lymphocyte, and the second blot is representing the monocyte, and the third blot is representing the granulocytes.
Very good. Because I told you that lymphocyte has the smallest size and the least granularity. So it is on the lowest scale of the SSC, very little or no granules at all, but size is okay. Then we have the monocyte, which is little bigger, but slightly higher also. And then we have the granulocyte or the neutrophil. So this is the only basic concept of flow cytometry. So this has to properly understand every time whenever you run any flow cytometry, if you touch a flow cytometry, the first plot which you got or first plot you will get when you run any cell or anything, you will get a plot between SSC and FSC. And on the basis of these cluster, we determine whether which cell lines, which cluster we want to study. So if I want to study something in lymphocyte, then I will look into this cluster. If I want to study monocyte, I will look into this cluster. And if I want to study neutrophil, I will look into this cluster only. So how we will do that? We'll come. So, okay, we identified the lymphocyte, we identified the monocyte, we identified the neutrophil. What's the big deal? We were doing it for a long time, though not with this way, but of course in a microscopically. Why we need a flow cytometry? What's the big deal? What extra we can do with this? So, imagine this cell. So, almost all cells have some cell surface proteins. Blood cells have the characterized pattern for their proteins. So if we take any antibody which is attached to some fluorophore or a fluorescent molecule, and if I put a light which can excite it which has a wavelength which is equal to the excitation wavelength of that fluorescent molecule, I would be able to know how much light is there, if there is a particular protein present or not. So if I have a specific antibody tagged with a fluorophore against a specific protein, then I would know whether that specific protein present on that cell or not. Also, I can also find out that how many cells have that protein and how much protein is present on that, because the fluorescent intensity will be directly proportional to protein expression. So if I am comparing two persons lymphocyte, one has some disease, one is a normal, and I want to know that this particular protein in that lymphocyte is increased or decreased, I would use flow cytometry, because in microscopy I cannot look into those many cells. Here at least you will go for the 10,000, 20,000 cells. In microscopy you cannot screen 10,000, 2,000 cells. Not more than 10 or 20 cell, maximum 50 cell. You will not screen those many cells. So flow cytometry, with the help of flow cytometry, and not only cell surface, if I will treat this cell with which can make this cell membrane permeabilize, then I can also able to detect intracellular antigens. So I would be able to know how much a particular protein present in a particular cell. If I want to know, you all have heard lots of about the stem cells. So in stem cells, you also heard about the transcription factor, OCT, SOX, NANOC, they are transcription factor. So if you want to know that a particular cell in a cancer cell population, if you want to know that how many cancer stem cells are there, you will permeabilize the cell and then stain the cell with oxoxynenol, and we'll see that if my cell, how many percent of my cell is showing me that positivity, because the positivity of that marker will tell me that this much cells is a stem cell or this much cell is a normal cell. So I can identify a particular set of protein. So if you will see the CD markers of all the blood cells, the hematopoietic cells, platelets, RBC, granulocyte, monocyte, B cell, T cell, NK cell, these are the CD markers. They are present on the cell surface. And with these markers, the staining of these markers, we would be able to know which cells is present, which cell is not present, which cell number is increased, which cell number is decreased. When it comes to the blood cancer, whether it is a CML, AML, ALL, CLL, they all have a set parameter that if you have these markers present and these two markers absent, then this type of blood cancer. If you have these markers present, these markers absent, then this type of blood cancer. So whenever you go for any blood related disease, or then the flow cytometry has been must. They will be recommended by every doctor. Even in the COVID situation, we all heard that there is an immune burst, a cytokine storm. How do we know there is a cytokine storm? We come to know that there is an increase in the number of T cells, there is an increase in the number of NK cells. How a person come to know there is an increase in a T cell number, or there is an increase in a NK cell number? They took the blood, peripheral blood, they lyse the RBC, they run stain with the T cell marker, B cell marker, monocyte, all markers, and they will see that which all cells present, which all cells increasing or decreasing compared to the normal. It is all relative actually compared to normal. So this is how we use flow cytometry. So what is basic flow cytometer? So in a flow cytometer, you will have a flow cell in which you will put a cell which is flowing. So here our cell is flowing continuously. Then we will have a laser. Why we use laser? Because it is give us a specific wavelength of light, and then this laser strike on a particular cell, and then this light will go and tell us the FSC directly, because it is telling us that how much light is blocked. The block light is directly proportional to the size of the cell. Then we will know that there is a granules present, or the cell organelles will present, and they will deflect the light, and we will come to know SSC. And if we have stained the cell, and the cell is stained with any fluorescent molecule, we will also have a fluorescent. If we have used two color, then we will have two fluorescence different coming from. If we have three colors, we can go for the three color. Usually in the research, three color is mostly used, but nowadays for the diagnostic purpose, even 20, 25, 50 color, even 50 color flow cytometers are available. But this is the basic, the most basic version, where you have a single laser and three color. So we will be using a fluorophore, three fluorophore, which can be excited by the same one wavelength, but they all will give us the excitation at a different wavelength. So FL1, FL2, FL3 are the fluorescence 1, fluorescence 2, fluorescence 3. So these are the dichroic mirror which we use. We will see their work and function in the later part. We collected this fluorescence. Now what we will do with this fluorescence? We take them to amplification. Then there will be amplification. It could be a PMT, it could be a biodiode, and from there it will go to analog to digital converter, ADC, and from there it will go for interpretation in a software. We can transfer it to the PC, and with using the software we can analyze the flow cytometry data. So I hope this much is clear to everyone. And if you have any question about until now,
Sir, can I?
yeah, sure.
Sir, this fluorescence is
Hello, your voice is breaking, sir.
Okay.
Hello, sir, can you
Can
hear
you?
me?
Yeah. Can you write the question in chat box because your voice is not clear?
The chat box is not showing here.
Okay. Yeah. No. No.
Sir,
Soren.
I am
Just
asking that these steps of this.
Soren.
So,
So
okay, can you
Soren.
send the message by message, WhatsApp message or something to Devakar?
Yeah, Soren. That will be better.
So
Send
he will
message.
tell me. So I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
So
Continue.
now, so this is the basic, the most primitive part of the flow cytometry. Now we are actually entering the flow cytometry. So we will first compare the microscopy versus flow cytometry because it is the same cell biology. We will study the cells in microscopy. We will do the study of cells in flow cytometry also. So what is this is a fluorescent microscope and we will just see the similarities. So this is how we see that we have a flow cell and detectors, laser. So the light source in a microscope is laser in flow cytometer. Where the cell is getting stricken by laser beam is your stage. Then your splitters are there, detectors, and eyepiece is your detector. So this is the fluorescent microscope and flow cytometer. So why don't we use microscopy only and not flow cytometry? So what is their use and
Yeah.
pros and cons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Harshi sir.
Yes.
Can I
Yes.
stop you? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Sure.
Actually, one of the student has question.
Yes.
Can we use a 3 different type of fluorescence for a single cell?
Yes. Yes. We can use 50 type of different fluorescence for single cell.
Okay. So
It
basically, he
depend.
has confusion in the marker and fluorescence. So just elaborate it, marker and fluorescence.
We will come when we come to the fluorescence part. This is just a basic that if you have one protein, that is your marker. And when we stick that antibody for that particular marker with some fluorophore, so we will only stick one fluorophore for one antibody. We won't give multiple fluorophore for a single antibody. Then we will not know which is which. So suppose in a protein, if you remember the protein name, I will tell you some of the name. Suppose I had to see CD1, CD2, you must have CD4, CD8 both. So if I want to know the CD4 and CD8 quantity, then I will put CD4 in a green color fluorescence and CD8 in a red color fluorescence. And I can see in a same cell, if I am getting a green fluorescence, then my CD4 is present. If I'm getting red color, CD8 is present. If I'm getting both red and green, then both are present. So this is how we come to know. So in this way, you can use multiple fluorescence, but the problem then the technical problem comes. We will discuss that is also have a solution.
Yes, sir.
So the cytometry and flow cytometry. In cytometry, we can localize the antigen, the exact location in the cell we would know in the cell where it is. But in flow cytometry, that is the con. We cannot tell the location of antigen. However, in now there is a imaging flow cytometers have come where we can overcome this problem. Another is in cytometry, poor enumeration of cell. As I said that you cannot beyond 100 cells. So if you see the statistical part, that if you are seeing only 100 cells in a population, that may or may not be correct observation. It may happen that you encounter those 100 cells which are positive only, and you did not encounter the negative cells at all. Even the quantitation. So in flow cytometry, you can analyze many cells in a short time. It takes hardly 5 to 10 seconds to analyze 10,000 cells. Then simultaneous measurement in cytometry can be limited. You can only use 1, 2, 3 color only, but in flow cytometry, you can take as many parameters as you want to study. It is only the limited by number of laser and number of detector present in your flow cytometer. If you have 10 laser, you can have the 50 color. You can have one laser, at least in one laser you can go for the 3 color, 2 laser 4 color. So these are the basic, so multiple parameters you can see. So this is the difference of the data. So in cytometry you get this kind of data, and in flow cytometry you got the histograms and the plots. So now we dissect the flow cytometry. So this is our basic section is over. And now we go for the dissection of flow cytometry. So what happened in flow cytometer? So in flow cytometer, cells are present in a suspension and they flow single file path. What that means? That at a time only one cell pass the laser. It should not happen that instead of 1, 2 are passing. If 2 pass, then you whatever the data you are getting, it is for the 2 cells. So it will be wrong. So you have to have a cell suspension in which all the cells are single cells, not clump, not 2 cell, 3 cell are clumping together. So this is comes in a part of fluidics. Second part is a focus laser. That laser which will scatter the light and emit the fluorescence. Now then those fluorescence will be filtered and collected. So this is a part of optics, and in optics it is part of interrogation. Then we convert this digitized values, whatever we got, into a store file. That is a part of electronics. And then we read these values or whatever the data we got with a specialized software that is called interpretation. So we have seen a basic image. Just a minute. So let's see. We have seen this slide. So now can you tell me which part is which is fluidics part, which is interrogation part, or and which is the electronics part and which is the interpretation part? Anyone? Okay, let's see one by one. So this is our flow cytometer basic picture. So this is the part where our cell is passing one by one single file path. This is our fluidics. In this part where we are, the laser is encountering and it is collecting, it is part of interrogation, and it is a broader category of optics, this one. So this we can separate all the mirrors, all the detectors, they are on part of optics also. Then this amplification and ADC, this is a part of electronics. Even the computer is a part of electronics, but I am keeping it separate because I'm representing here as a software. So this is how software we use for the interpretation. So the component, basic component, only broadly fluidics, optics and electronics. So one by one we will go. So what is fluidic system and how we ensure that only single cell is passed? So cell in suspension, flow single file is a thumb line of fluidic system. So cell should be in suspension and they flow single file. How could we achieve it? How is possible we can achieve this? So this can be achieved by multiple technologies. So it is achieved by you have to have cells in a flow one by one into cell so that you can do the single cell analysis, and this is accomplished by through a pressurized laminar flow system. Now most of the students have seen the laminar flow workstation where you do your aseptic work. How it work? It work on a pressure. So it changes the pressure of the inside working platform so that the outside air could not go. The similar system is being involved here. So here we have the two fluids which work. One is a sheath fluid which covers the our cell suspension. So in cell we have a single cell suspension, but still we are making, so it may possible that 2-3 cells can pass in a time. So we change the pressure, we adjust the pressure in such a way that only single cell is passed. So the sample is injected into sheath fluid as it passes through a small orifice that will be around 50 micromolar to 300 micron. So this is how the laminar layer is built. So as the sample goes through here, it started focusing. So if you see this way, then you have the sheath fluid and samples. So the pressure difference between this fluid and this fluid work in such a way that this cells will form a little orifice and only one cell can pass from here. So how the flow cell function? The cell from the sample tube injected into the sheath stream, and the flow is a laminar flow. Flow cell is a laminar, and we do the hydrodynamic focusing, and that hydrodynamic focusing pushes the cell to the line of single file along its long axis. So hydrodynamic, hydro means liquid we are taking, so it's a water system. We have the both are the buffer system, sheath fluid as well as the suspension in which cell suspension we are making medium. So these two are in a flow, means they are in a dynamic condition. So this is creating a focus. So hydrodynamic focusing that push the cell and they line up the cell into single line file along its long axis. So in a long axis, they will only single cell will go. Then the shape of flow cell provide the means for hydrodynamic focusing. So hydrodynamic focusing is supported by the shape of the flow cell. So we will see the pressure differential. If we see the sheath fluid is on 10 psi and flow cell has a 10.2 psi, then you will see that only one cell is being visible. If I increase the too much 10.8, you will see that the orifice is increased, and see the difference. So the 4 cells are going, the 1 cells are here, 2 cells, 4 cells. So as you change the difference in the pressure of the sample and sheath, the cell number will increase and it will control the sample volume, flow rate, and greater the differential. Jitna zyada unme differential, the more there is a difference, the more bigger or the wider the sample core will be, and we will get the more cells. So this pressure can be adjusted at the time of running. When we start the flow cytometer running, we adjust in such a way that we will get one cell at a time. So this is the fluidic system. So if the differential too long, then we will not get a single line file, we will get more than one file. So we will get results in a wider CV. CV here is a confidence variable, and it will increase multiple cell passing and laser, and we will not get single cell analysis. So this is our fluidics part of the flow cytometry. Now we come to the optical part. Optical part, we'll first talk about fluorescence, and you must have seen this kind of picture many times in 12th, BSc, MSc. In chemistry, you always see, sometimes in biology also. So the simple thing that electron is there, and when you excite the electron with the excitation light, it go into the in a higher energy state, and within milliseconds it comes back, and when it comes back it releases the energy, and that energy is released in the form of photon, and that photon's wavelength will be higher than the exciting light's wavelength. So this is the basic function. So we are exciting at a lower wavelength, but what we are getting resulting, or the emission what we are getting, is in higher wavelength. So that is called the fluorescence. So what is a fluorophore? How we get the fluorescence? We use some fluorophore. So is a we also call it a fluorochrome, is similar to chromophore, is a fluorescent chemical compound, and which can re-emit light upon excitation. So when we excite this from a light, it can re-emit the light at a higher wavelength. So when we use it, so if we exciting it in an ultraviolet range, we can get in a visible range. So thereby it is useful that yes, I am exciting the fluorochrome in a UV range which we cannot see by our eyes, but when we see the emission that is in a visible range, that I can see. So that is how they will be helpful. So sometimes they will be used alone as a tracer in fluid, or as a dye for staining for certain structure, or as a probe, or they can also be used as an indicator. They can also be used as tag for a in particular DNA probe, RNA probe, or DNA probe, or protein antibodies. So we can tag these molecules with the fluorophore, and whenever we give the excitation light, if that fluorophore is present, it will give us light. So it will give us indication that yes, my fluorophore is here. That means the tag molecule which I have sent, that is also here. So that particular protein which I want to tag, that must be here. So characteristics of fluorophore, what characteristics we need? Their maximum excitation and emission wavelength. They are expressed in nanometers. So they correspond to the peak in excitation and emission spectra. We will see the plot. So particularly if I make a plot here for you. So if we take a plot, so if we give some light, so a fluorophore have a specific their peak of excitation. This is lambda. So this particular wavelength is a very specific for a specific fluorochrome. So this is called maximum excitation. Similarly, when after receiving excited by this, it will emit light in certain wavelength. So there is a again we have a plot for that, and that we have a maximum emission on a particular wavelength. So this is called lambda EX, excitation wavelength. This is called lambda EM, or emission wavelength. So we usually have one peak only for one particular fluorophore, not multiple. Then Another property is called molar absorption coefficient. It is expressed in a molar inverse, centimeter inverse, and it links to the quantity of absorbed light. So at a given wavelength, how much light it is absorbed in the concentration of a fluorophore. So if it is given molar of a particular fluorochrome, how much light it absorbs. So that is called molar absorption. And next, which is the most important, which we always keep in mind, that is called quantum yield. It is the efficiency of light transfer from the excitation to emission. So we should know that how much light is emitted, photons absorbed. If the fluorochrome has absorbed one photon and emitted one, then we have a 100% quantum yield. So in theoretically we can have 100%, but we never get. So this is show how much brighter could be a photon is and how much better fluorophore is. So now we have lots of commercially available fluorophores are available, which gives us up to 90, 95, 98% even quantum yield. So they are the brighter color. Why we use brighter color? Because we get better signal from those brighter colors, and we will be able to, whether we will be doing a fluorescence microscopy or whether we will be using for the flow cytometer, whenever we choose a fluorophore, which we are, suppose I try to choose an antibody for CD4. So if you go in Google and if you put a CD4 fluorescent antibody, you will get all kind of availability. It will available into you in CD4 FITC, CD4P, CD4 PERCP, CD4 Alexa 488, CD4 Alexa 588. So in all so we have all kind of this available. So we have to choose which one. So when we have so much choice, how could we choose? So we choose on the basis of quantum yield. Which fluorochrome will give me the brighter. Then another thing is the lifetime. So in picosecond it is. So in the duration of the excited state, how much it is stayed there and how much time it takes to return to the ground state. So it should be the minimum as possible, 1 by E usually in a decay time. And another is called Stokes shift. So Stokes shift is a difference between maximum excitation and maximum emission wavelength. As I showed you this plot here. So the difference between these two peaks is called Stokes shift. So jitna as much wider this will be, the much better resolution we will get, because more this is wider, less the background noise we will get. N is the dark fraction, is the proportion of molecule active in fluorescence emission. So these all characteristic we remember before choosing the fluorophore for our flow cytometry or microscopy work, whatever. But here we will talk only flow cytometry. So you will see this. It will explain you lots of things. So this is the light if we are giving. So this is the maximum excitation, as I mentioned. This is the fluorescence emission. This is the Stokes shift. Now this is a specific thing. This is called a spectral overlap might be there, and sometimes it is quite distinct also. So we try to see that there should be the highest number of this. This Stokes shift should be wider, so that we will not have the spectral overlap. So it should not happen that whatever light we are giving, we are getting that light also, because this is overlapping. So this much light we will always get in an emission spectra. So we try to avoid this thing, and we try to see the try to get the fluorophore which has the highest Stokes shift and highest quantum yield. Now comes the another part of optical system. Those are called optical filters. So what are the filters? So there are many wavelengths of light which are emitted from the sample or the cell which we need to split. They will depend on the specific wavelength of the fluorophore, or they could be background also, and this splitting or the stopping we do by filters. So optical filters are designed in such a way that they either absorb or reflect a particular or specific range of light, the specific range of wavelength of the light, while they transfer other or block the other. So there are three types of filters available. First is called long pass filter, second is called short pass filter, and third is called band pass filter, and we can use all of them. So what is long pass filter? Simple. Long pass, you should remember, this is the image. You will see that this is a long pass filter. So what it does, it transmits all the wavelength which are greater than a specified wavelength. So if I say it is written as a LP, so if for filter, if it is written LP 500 or 500 LP, means 500 long pass, means it will allow all the wavelength above 500. Anything below 500 it will stop, anything higher than 500 it will allow. So here if we see the transmittance, it is allowing, is this 500, so it is all the small is blocked, all higher is allowed. So this is long pass filter. Long pass means above, long means whatever number is given, above that everything is allowed. Opposite is short pass filter. It will allow everything which is shorter than that. So it transmits the light which all the wavelength which are less than the specified wavelength. So in the same, if I say the 500 short pass, here I had given the 600 short pass example. So in a 500 or 600, it is written 600 SP, 600 short pass, means it will allow all the wavelength which are lower than the 600 nanometer. If I written a 500 short pass, it will allow everything below 500, and everything above 500 will be stopped. Then comes the band pass filter. So band pass filter have a band, so they will allow only the band, this band. So they will transmit a specific band of wavelength. So how we will know that? If I say example of a 520 band pass, so it will this will filter the light between 540 and 560. That means 520 by 20 band pass is 550 plus minus 10. So 50 means 500. Sorry. What is it? Sorry. So the 550 plus 10, 550 minus 10. So it will allow 560 and 540. Between 540, 560, it will allow all the light. Other than that, it will block everything. So this is one, the filters. Now next thing in this we use are dichroic filter. So what are the dichroic filter? They actually turn the light. Dichroic filter, then they can also be long pass, short pass, as well as band pass. So if I want to turn the light, I will use the dichroic mirror. So the short pass, if there is a, suppose this is 550 short pass. So below 550 everything will be here. It is going to detector this. All above 550 are going here, because it will reflect all above that particular wavelength. So depending on the specific specs of the filter, some of the light is reflected and part of the transmitted, as I showed you. So as per the, if it is a dichroic mirror of 550 short pass, it will allow. If it is a 550 long pass, then it will allow everything above 550, and less than 550 everything will be reflected. So now you got this idea.
Yes,
You
sir.
now this picture of a flow cytometer, which is from the BD. It is a Bexon BD specs caliber. So you will see those all numbers will be here. So we have two lasers here, 488 nanometer blue laser and red diode 535 laser. So if they go on here, so 488 by 10. So here will be only 488 laser will go. So 488 plus minus 5. So here it is a band filter. This is a band filter, band pass filter. So how much it allow 478 to 498, all light are going here. Then we have a fluorescent collection lamp which will collect all the fluorescence coming, and it goes up. So we have dichroic mirror of 560 short pass. So 560 short pass, what it will do, below 560 all will be going up. So 560, 59 and below going up, and all rest will be deflected. So here they again put a 910 beam splitter. So beam splitter, what it does, it will split the beam into 90-10. So 10 is going here. We again put a filter 488 10. We are collecting it here for the SSC 488 light. The same as here for FSC, same we are collecting here. Then the light goes. So we have anyway have the less only 559 and below. We again put another filter 530 by 30, means this is again base band pass, and 515 to 545 nanometer light is allowed, and this will call my fluorescence 1. So the usual fluorescence 1 is FITC, Alexa 488. So they all which have the emission range in this range 515 to 545. What happened to the rest of the above 560 and greater? So we have again dichroic mirror of 640 long pass. So what it means, 640 and less will be deflected, and only 640 and above are passed here. So below 640 has gone here, and again we got a one mirror here, again a filter which is band pass 585, band pass of 42, so 21 minus. Then we are collecting here FL2. Similarly we got half mirror, and we are getting FL4, and above we are getting FL3. So this is how we split the light. So in the same system where we are getting multiple fluorescence. So now you will understand, if I keep with 488 laser, I can achieve only 3, FL1, FL2, FL3. If I had to, FL3. If I had to go for FL4, I need red diode laser. Then only I will get 661 excited. So if I increase the number of lasers, then, or if we increase the number of filters here, Then we can collect as much light as we want of a different color. So this is the basic 2 laser 4 color flow cytometer, which is explained here. Any questions so far?
Yes, sir. Three
Yes.
questions from the student.
Yes.
First question, the basic about the fluorophore, whether
Okay.
it tag with the living molecules or non-living molecule, means based on the specificity of fluorophore. And second question, the absorbance and transmittance depends upon the fluorophore molecules, or it depends upon the combination of fluorophore and cell integrity. Two
Sorry, I
questions.
didn't know. Fluorophore
And cellular integrity.
okay. So the first question, sorry, ask me one by one. I forget first.
Yeah. Actually, first question about the specificity of fluorophore.
Okay.
Whether
So,
it
yes.
stand,
So
yeah.
specificity of the fluorophore tagging can be done for the living or non-living. That is the question.
Yeah,
Correct?
sure. Yeah, sure.
So the thing is that fluorophore can be used on a living system, but the tagging, I don't know what tagging you are talking. Here I will explain you a little thing that we have a protein which is present in a cell, and then we have an antibody for that protein. So there is a one tagging here where we attach fluorophore here. So this attachment is always for the non-living, never for the living system. I hope this is clear now. One thing. Second thing, this fluorophore can go inside the living cell, and we can do the staining, live cell staining, and we can see it should not be the actually intracellular, but cell surface staining can be done in a living cell. Also, if yes, so cell surface staining can be done on the living cell, and these cells can also further injected into the mice or something. So you will know that which place these cells are going, tagged cell. So I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. Second thing, second question is the specific, that means absorbance and transmittance depend on what? Fluorophore or the cell permeability, or so it is both, depending on where you are sending your fluorophore. If you are sending your fluorophore on a cell surface, then cell integrity and cell permeability doesn't have any role to play here. When it go inside the cell, certainly the cellular environment play some role in how the fluorophore is react, but that is very minimum, not too much. But pH of your suspension or pH of your medium play a very vital role, because when the pH of your buffer is above 7, all green color fluorescence will be bleached. They will not give you color. They will bleached out. So all FITC staining or Alexa 488 staining, all the green color staining, if you are doing in a buffer which pH is above 7 or below 7, you will not get a color. It has to be pH is play another important role. So I hope this also had answered your question.
Yes, sir. So you have
Okay.
to check the condition which is suitable
Yes,
according to the
so it is yes,
fluorophore.
accordingly you have to
Yeah.
select the fluorophore. So now the optical part, we have laser, forward scatter, side scatter, PMTs, and filters and mirrors. So we have seen this detail. Now comes the interrogation. So interrogation we do by light source, and light source need to be focused on the same point where the cell is focused. So wherever the cell is there, we have to focus our light source there, because if there is a little bit misalignment, you will be missing your cell every time. Then your light source in usually all flow instrument is a laser, and I hope everybody knows the full form of the laser. I'm just still putting it here so you can read it. I'm not going. So why we use laser? Because they are monochromatic. They can provide the single wavelength of light. So there is no mixture of the light. So we will be sure that every time if I am putting a 488 laser, I'm sure that I'm getting 488 nanometer light. They also work on a very less provide milliwatt to watt of power. So they can provide milliwatt to watt power. So the power range is very good. They also provide coherent light, means all the emitting photons that they emit, they have the same wavelength, same phase and same direction as the stimulation.
Hello. Harshit sir, there is technical issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, we lost the power.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had put the hotspot. My screen is visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Interrogation.
Okay, then I'll go ahead because here I lost the electricity. So I hope it will come soon. So it also provides coherent light, and all this help to create a stable and reliable signal. We always need a stable and reliable signal so that there will be no fluctuation when we are doing our work. So it should not happen that in for one cell we get another power, another cell we got another power, or there will be change in the wavelength. Slight change in the wavelength also could create a lots of difference in the result which we will get. So then comes the detector. So there are two main types of detector we used in flow cytometry. There are photodiode and PMTs. So photodiode are used for the strong signal when saturation is a very not a is a very potential problem. So it is used for the FSC always. Whenever we use the forward scatter, it is always the photodiode because it is receiving direct light. So we don't want to be multiply that light. We don't want it to amplify. So wherever we use have a sensitivity problem, there we use PMT. So when we have a very little amount of light coming and we want it to be detected, we use photomultiplier tubes. So they are sensitive than photodiode and they can detect very small amount of fluorescence. So you all know how photomultiplier tube comes. So they have the photocathode and diode, and then as the incoming photon comes, it will excite another photon. Then there is a multiple chain goes on. One excite, two excite, four excite, and so this is where you will amplify your entire light system. So it is you have very little light coming, but when the light when exit, it will have a very high uh, intensity. So these are the fluorescence detection devices, PMTs, and which are capable of detecting fluorescence. And the amount of light or the number of photons, they are proportional to the amount of fluorophore present on cytoplasm or membrane in the cell. So they will be corresponding in that way. Next is how it works. So it depends on the voltage, how much voltage is applied to the detector. So it makes the electron available for the photon to pick up. And as the number of photons increased, and more electrons are picked up and yield is greater. So the voltage is very special here. So whenever we run any fluorescence experiment or flow cytometry experiment, experiment, we first took our brightest sample. Whenever, if anyone has done the flow cytometer, if you go to the operator asks you the brightest sample first, which has the highest, which can give you the most high signal of that fluorophore, and then he will set the voltage for a PMT, so that it will not go for the saturation, and then all other samples will be run accordingly. So the voltage applied to the detector that increase the amount of photons, and thereby we have the higher output. And so PMT is used to multiply or amplify the signals which we are getting. But why? Because those signals are in a low quantity, low intensity. Then comes the electronics. So we have the detector. Detectors are basically collect the photon of light and then they convert them into the current. And then this electronics must be able to process the light signal, and which can convert the current into digitized values. So 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, those digitized values could come, and that computer can use to plot the graph. So this is detector. Next part is called analog to digital converter, or ADC, and it takes the voltage pulse and it converts this voltage pulse into discrete binary number, and depending upon the total resolution, how much resolution is there, and those binary signal which is generated, they are converted into bin number. So analog to digital, it is just to understand that whatever the current is coming in an analog signal, it will convert into digital converter, and those numbers will be used for the list values, and they will give you how much intensity coming from the each cell or each place and each event, and then they will be used for the plotting of the graph. Next part is interpretations. So each parameter present in a list mode file. I am not going in a detail because if I go, that will create lots of things. So you just understand that you got a list mode file, and that file can be opened by a specialized software only. So all the major manufacturer of flow cytometry meters, they provide their own software to you for analysis purpose. There are some free software also present which can be used. So data can be displayed in a multiple format, is the one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional as you need, and depending on the software. So common program which are used are CellQuest, which is from the BD. Then FlowJo, it is a commercially available software which can be obtained. And then the WinMDI, it is freely available, WinMDI, and FCS Express. Next is FCS Express. So this is how these software will be used for analysis of data. Now we have done the basics. We have seen what is flow cytometer, various parts of flow cytometer. We have seen the fluidics, how the fluidics work, how then optical system work, light source, how it goes ahead and take the course, and then how the data is generated, converted, and analyzed. So now we got the data, and now we'll see how we should analyze the data. So far, any question?
No, sir.
No. Okay, then I'll go ahead with the analysis part. So with the data which we got from flow cytometer, we can create multiple types of plot. So the first type of plot is called the dot plot. Why? Because there is a dots. So SSC versus FSC, as well as whatever if you are looking for the two-dimensional data. So one protein, another protein. So CD4, CD8, CD35, CD28, CD45, CD117. You can create as many combination as you want. So this kind of data is called the dot plot. Another plot is called the density plot. This is the same as a dot plot, but here it is showing the density. So the color range is given red to blue to red. So blue shows the least density of the cell, red shows the highest density, and you will see where the number of cells are residing maximum. And this lines which are showing here, these are called the quadrants. So when you put, it can divide your dot plot or density plot or contour plot also into 4 parts. So which is this is called the upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. So we have the 4 quadrants. So here also we can do. So if we have the 2 colors, if we see suppose CD45, CD117 or protein 1, protein 2. So whatever the number of cells here, they will be negative for both the protein. They will not have the signal for either for this protein or this protein. Whatever we are getting here, they are having signal for only this protein, not for this protein. And whatever the cells we have here, they will have signal for only this protein, not for this. And whatever we got here, they will have positivity for the both. This is how we interpret. So then the contour plot, this is another way of showing. It is also showing the density kind of thing only. Wherever we have the highest density, a density level it is showing. And then the histogram, this is 1D graph or 1 parameter only. So here we have the count, means the number of cells, how many number of cells, and how much is the fluorescence for a particular given signal. So more it is, so as it is increased here, the fluorescence increase, the height shows the number of cells are increasing. So what we do with this plot and how we analyze. Suppose we got a data like this. So I told you that this might be this is my blood sample, suppose, or the cell line sample. I'm getting all my cells here. These all cells might be the not useful for me. So I try to isolate those subset of the cells. These could be the debris, these could be the doublets, these could be the dead cells, whatever. So if I take them, my data or my analysis could not be correct. So I put a line here which tell me that I am only interested in this much cell population. Then I will create plot, whether a histogram or I will create a dot plot with the quadrant, and I will tell this plot that show me the cells from this gate. So this number will come automatically, R1, here it is come. So I will tell this system that show me the cells only from R1. Then only from the R1 it will show me the difference. Then I can further create another gate. So it is work on a Boolean system where, though you must have heard of the Boolean gates and or not gate. So I can put that also, that now subsequent gating also I can do, that now I have M1, M2, I want to see only M2 here. Then I will do M3, M4, I want to see M3, or I will go here that, okay, this is my positive here, I want to see this CD8 FITC positive, I want to see only CD8 positive. So I will put only M2 plot gate here. So I will ask this plot in a setting that show me only M2 cell. So as many gate as you can do, and they all depend on your experimental design. So they will allow you to the ability to look at the parameter which is specific to only that subset cell line. And they will also they use Boolean logic also. So I can, if I have multiple gate, I can say A and B. Show me the cells which are positive for A and B both. I can say them A or B, the cell which is positive for A as well as for the B. I can give them not command also, A not B, give me only for which are positive for exclusively for A, not for B. So those commands can also be given. So what could be the grading strategy? We selecting the cell population of interest. How we can select? There are two parameters usually, and they are the FSC versus SSC, which is based on the size and granularity. As I told you that if we plot the SSC, FSC, we can know if we are running blood cells, if we are interested in lymphocyte, I can select the lymphocyte. If I'm looking for T and B, then I will also select the lymphocyte. If I'm looking for the new granulocyte, I'll select only the granulocyte and ask my further all analysis to show only that gate. Another is CD45 versus SSC. CD45 versus SSC gate is mainly used in the case of cancers, because CD45 is a marker for maturity. So those cells which are less mature are the immature cells. Suppose stem cells, they have very least CD45, and those are which are completely mature, like granulocytes or even lymphocytes, which are completely mature into B lymphocyte, T lymphocyte, they will have very high CD45. So the dim versus high positivity we can see. So in cancer cells, they are always look for the blast cells. So you will see here. So this is how the scatter plot get when you have lies whole blood and only PBMC if you run. So lymphocyte, monocyte, granulocytes will be there. Here also in you have not granulocyte because it is only PBMC, so only monocytes and lymphocytes, and whole blood you will have all. And ice. Then when you go for any experiment, you must have a negative control. So suppose this is my negative control, I choose this cell line, then you will see that it is not showing me fluorescence for any of the positive fluorescence. So they have IgG1 FITC, IgG1P, IgG1P, Psi5.5. Here they have my IgG2. So this is isotype, and when I take the another stained cell, then I will see the difference. So here R1 population only I am looking, and I will see these two population. In this case, these are the exclusive positive. I'm not seeing cells in this quadrant, so there are no dual positive. The cells are either CD19 positive or CD5 positive. We are not seeing the dual positive here. Here in CD19 and CD10, I am not seeing single positive, but all the dual positive. So all the cells which are here, they are all dual positive. Here in IgM versus IgD, I am seeing only IgM positive. So the antibodies IgM, IgD, I can know where so in this population, I am only having IgM antibody and present. So this is how we do the analysis, and same way we can create a histogram also. In histogram, we will see how much this histogram move from control to non-control, and this is how we keep on going. So in histogram, how can we compare? Suppose we have these three. So this is a control where we have all the cells in a 10 to the power 1 range, and it is not showing me any positivity. So I had created M1 and M2. Now I would know after treatment my cells have moved. See here, the fluorescence increased. So all the cells have increased, but they are giving me two population. One peak here, one peak here. I would the entire population and a small population. Now this is again another treatment. I'm seeing now I can see that they increase, but how will I compare this to? So in the software, you also get the plot overlay. So this is, if I overlay those plot, I can see this is my control, this is my first treatment, this is my second treatment, and I see there is a shift. So this treatment and this treatment has the effect. So this treatment is increasing further. Okay. Any questions so far? Then we go on another aspect.
Yes, sir. Continue, sir.
So, okay. So any cell surface protein you have, any intracellular protein here, this is the basic plot you get when you do one dimensional. So you have negative control, then you have your first treatment, second treatment, and you keep on getting your shifting. So you may get positivity, you may get higher intensity. The next experiment which we can do by the DNA is a ploidy analysis. We can do the cell cycle. So if we treat the cells with propidium iodide and then we run on the flow cytometer, we get this kind of plot. And this will show us that these are the population of G0, G1 phase. These are the population of S phase, and this is a G2 phase. Why? Because the PI will show us the how much DNA is there. So the DNA at this fluorescence is doubled. So if we have increased completely doubled, so it is in G1, G2, there is a doubling of DNA and there is a synthesis of DNA. So we got this kind of plot. And why we could, how can we use? So suppose we have got some cancerous cell and we are treating it with some drug and we are seeing that cells are not growing. So what does that mean? That cells either dying or they are resting. So with this, we can come to know. So this is a plot which is taken from this paper. So you will see that we will get a percentage. So here G1 is 60, S is 28, and G2M is 11.74. This is a control. Then there another treatment. The first treatment will showing them slightly increase 62 from 60 to 62. There is no, that will not give you statistical significance. There is another, then it is going 64. Here if you will see that there is a quite depletion in a G1 population. The cell population is depleted from 60 to around 40%. And there is an increase in the number of S phase and G2 phase. So whatever the treatment is, this is, it is pushing the cell for further in cell cycle. So the cell is progressing and we will have more S phase in G2M cells. So this is how we study. Another thing which we can do study is why annexin V and PI stain, whether cells are dying apoptotically or necrotically. So PI stain only let apoptotic and necrotic cell because it can go inside only the cells which has compromised cell membrane. So cell membrane is intact until cell is live or in early apoptotic, but in late apoptotic and necrotic, cell membrane is completely disintegrate and PI can go inside. Propidium iodide PI is. Annexin V stain only apoptotic cell. Why it can apoptotic? Because in cell membrane there is a phosphatidylserine present. So as the apoptosis start, this phosphatidylserine start moving to the cell surface, and this annexin V is bind only to phosphatidylserine. So whether it is early apoptosis or late apoptosis, we will always see the annexin staining, but only in late apoptosis we will see both annexin and PI. Only in necrotic we will see PI, no annexin, because cell membrane is completely disintegrated. In live cell we will not see at all any stain. So if we plot again our plot, and if we try make a quadrant, so for PI versus annexin V, usually PI is taken in a red color, annexin V is PI is a red color, propidium iodide. Annexin V is usually then taken in a green color, FITC or Alexa 488. So in this first quadrant, which is lower left quadrant, we will get the live cell. Then upper left quadrant, we get all necrotic cell because they will be stained only for the PI, not for annexin. Here we get dual positive, those are late apoptotic because they will bind with PI, they will bind as well as for annexin B. Early apoptotic cell, they will only bind with annexin B. So this is very common experiment. Most of the people do it whenever they do. So now comes the data. How the data comes? When we create any plot, suppose I had created a histogram plot and I say show me the statistics. Statistics usually come in this way. You go for option, you will get multiple lots of option also. So it will show you that which population we are talking about. So all the population we have taken from the G1 gate. Then parameter we have taken only FL1 height. What it will tell me? Marker M1, M2 which I had created. So in isotype I am seeing 98% my cells are unstained. And then we will have mean, median, standard difference, standard deviation, coefficient of variance, and median, peak and peak channel. So what is most important for me? These two things. Just a minute. The most important thing for me is a percent gated and median. This median is actually the median fluorescence intensity. So it is showing me how much fluorescent intensity I am having. So when my cells I compare, I will see whether fluorescence increase or not. Percent gated will show me how much percent of the cells are positive for a particular protein. Suppose I stain for CD4 and I get 80% positivity, then my 20% cells are not positive for this. If I'm treating it with something and then this positivity go down to 100%, increase to 100% or go down to 60%, then that would be the effect. I will compare, see that I have 80% positive, now I have 60% positive. Or I have 80%, now I have 100%. So this treatment is increasing CD4 population. Another thing, we can compare the median also. If my all cells are positive 100%, then how I will compare with the median. If my number, this median fluorescence increased, means number, the protein expression is increased. Sometimes what happened, the percent, suppose from 80 to 100 it goes, but fluorescence decreases. Median fluorescence is decreasing. So what we will say that yes, I'm getting more positivity, but overall expression of CD4 is decreased. The cellular positivity is increased, but per cell expression has decreased. So this is how we interpret the data. When we have quadrant, then we get this kind of data. Mostly we compare the gated, percent gated here. So we get upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. So we will know that, okay, upper left, so only one protein positive, and lower right is another single positive. This is my negative population. This is my dual positive population. So I will, after every experiment, I can compare whether this population, which population is increasing, which population is decreasing. So have you got everything? Any questions so far? So our basics analysis is all covered. Do we have time or should I wind up?
Yes, sir. Actually, 8:20 p.m. is today time, so we have to just catch some question from the expert. Sir, I have one question. So
yes,
event total event counting in each experiment is also advisable according to the data?
I didn't get you. Each event counting.
Yeah, in one time of experiment.
No, we actually fix the number of event we are analyzing. Usually we analyze 10,000 cells and then we don't compare from the gated population. If gated in some plot you will get gated population 90%, some plot you will get the gated population 40%. So in that way, you in gated population you have 5,000, and in some you have the 2,000. That doesn't matter. You don't have to control that, because
Okay.
that is the beauty here. Because we don't know after treatment what is happening. There maybe the cells are dying. You cannot control it, and they might be aggregating in the debris. So if you go and collecting, so even the 1,000 cell data is enough for you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other question?
Yes, sir. Thus, the session is open for question. So, if any participant has relevant question, can ask today's expert.
Sorry. Okay. Any questions? So,
Any
hello?
question from a student side? Hello. Dear student.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you please elaborate on hydrodynamic focusing once?
Okay. I think I should. Just let me share my screen once again. And okay, you can see my screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what happened that I have this fluid is going with one pressure. This fluid is going. This fluid is flowing like this, and I will inject another fluid with a different pressure. So here we have a pressure, suppose P1, and with P2 I am adding this. So what happened that with this pressure difference, this fluid will try to pressure this stream, and because of this pressure, this stream will not mixed up. This keeps on focusing because we are keeping this stream in a different pressure and this pressure stream in a different pressure. So this is called hydrodynamic focusing.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anything else?
I think no more question.
Okay then.
Any question? No. So now.
I hope they got what I presented.
Okay.
I tried to do in an.
No, thank you, sir, for wonderful lecture and spending valuable time for this session. We have cleared a lot of doubt during the sessions and clearly know what is the importance of flow cytometry in the biotechnology approach. So our deep gratitude to you from the biotechnology department. Now, I would like to request all participants kindly join tomorrow session from 6:30 p.m. onwards by the Shiven Kumar Chaurasia. he will try to explore the real-time approach and application in the biotechnology. So we again meet tomorrow. Now I request HOD sir kindly proceed towards the ending of the session. HOD sir.
Thank you, Devakar. So first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Shoni. It was a long lecture, but the flow of the lecture was excellent. The way he started for the very basic thing and gradually lead us into the complexity of the techniques and its application is really wonderful. I did a little bit of work on with the facts, but I got a much better understanding of the total instrumentation and its application. Thank you very much, Dr. Shoni. We sincerely hope that when the Nirmal Seal restore, we'll be able to invite you physically to come to our university and deliver a lecture on other similar topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. And Devakar, yes, of course, we have to conclude for today. So due to some technical problems, we couldn't share the joining link to all the participants, all the people who registered, students and faculty members. So that's why maybe the number of participants are a little low, but we have corrected that mistake. We send the joining link to everybody. So everybody can join, use the same link for the next 4 days at the same time, 6:30 p.m. So with that note, I think we can conclude for today. So good night to everybody from my end.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So,
Okay, Devakar.
Okay,
Then I'll end from my side. Thank you, Devakar, and thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good night.